Many people are not educated on the concept of the narcissistic injury, also known as the narcissistic wound, and are in for a wrath from the narcissist that is beyond comprehension, because when they offend a narcissist, and it can be the smallest tiny little thing, and they will go into this rage. And when offended, a typical person might experience hurt feelings, feel insulted, feel angry. However, the offended person might ultimately talk it through with the individual who committed the transgression, and a willingness to repair the relationship and move on, even though sometimes this can take time. In general, bonds are strengthened through the process of rupture and repair. People learn to handle insecurities in a relationship by building trust over time, as they see each rupture and conflict in the relationship eventually lead to a deeper connection. Not so in the narcissistic relationship. Offending a person who has NPD or narcissism can lead to immediate, long-lasting, and perhaps irreparable fallouts. And when dealing with a person with NPD or narcissism, the rules are very different, as we all know, and this is true in all aspects of the relationship. So the focus is always on the narcissistic injury, and these types of injuries are unlike any other types of interpersonal ruptures. These differences are hurt feelings, and they shame attack, and reactions to match their offense, which is an extreme overreaction of usually rage, sometimes verbal and physical abuse, and anything that would result in anger in a normal person, again, results in rage. Things that may take time to repair, it causes an existential threat to the relationship. They're constantly threatening every single time they get angry to leave you. So things that are eventually resolved in a neurotypical relationship are never resolved. Normal things are pathological, and people that are normal, they have the same personality, but with the narcissist, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And if they are offended in a normal relationship, the offended person may react with anger and withdraw, and then there's repairable retaliation, but with a narcissist, they react with punishment, banishment, devaluing, and discarding of the offender. So why do people with narcissism react differently? Why do narcissists react so vehemently when threatened by a seemingly innocuous, like a minor offense? And the answer, it's a bit complicated. So they hold grandiose views of themselves, and they are threatened by any perceived attack. The grandiose views of themselves are necessary for self-preservation for the narcissist. And when threatened, they are not merely offended, but the entire sense of self is at stake. They are overcompensating, and they are protective to this false self, and they will use any means possible to defend from this person so they don't feel any vulnerability. And people with narcissism do not operate within the realms of normal human interaction. So in a relational barter system that generates narcissistic supply, also known as narcissistic food or psychic whatever. So this includes admiration, attention, praise, accolades, and being viewed as the top dog. So when other people feed them these types of food, people with narcissism may have a false sense of satisfaction, but they are generally never ever content, because they are still lacking in true connection and intimacy with not only themselves, but everyone else around them. Since people with narcissism have distorted views of themselves and everyone else, they tend to perceive any positive interactions as expected and any negative interactions as personal attacks. They are particularly sensitive to negative attacks because they live in a pseudo-reality or a delusional state, and they may genuinely believe that they truly are superior to others. They can make no mistakes, and when positive reactions do come their way, they sometimes take those for granted. People with narcissism generally feel an inner void or an emptiness, and thus need the positive attention from others in order to maintain that delusional sense of reality. And when anyone contradicts their fantasy views of themselves. They get close to unbearable feelings and react strongly in order to stop that impending sense of inadequacy. So people with narcissism tend to have a chronic inner rage, and most people experience anger. And that's usually the response to a perceived threat. And anger helps us realize when we need to take action, and quickly. And usually when people are angry, they temporarily suspend their cognitive functioning and empathy to a large degree and tend to operate in immediate terms. So since they are constantly full of rage, which is the flip side to internal shame, people with narcissism, they will use any slight as an excuse to release some of that pressure of that inner rage and that shame, that struggle. And people with narcissistic wounds seem to be triggered by rather innocuous events, and it is helpful to understand the true root of the problem is neither caused by the target nor solved by the reaction of the person with narcissism. The true root of the anger is a person with narcissism has a deep-seated inner rage that is in place as a countermeasure to their deep-seated inner shame. So what do you do if you are involved in narcissistic wounding? And since people with narcissism have distorted views of themselves, they tend to perceive any positive interactions as expected again and negative as personal attacks. If you are involved with a narcissistic injury, perhaps the best thing that you can do is to step back and observe this person with narcissism and make silent statements to yourself, such as, wow, how interesting that this person is going ballistic over something so minuscule. Or, isn't it a shame that we can't have a healthy conversation and resolve our problems together? That will absolutely never happen. And then simply excuse yourself silently and go on about your day. So say that the narcissist gives you the silent treatment in response to your having wounded them, however innocuous this comment or action may have been. You must learn to stay quiet and walk away. A person with narcissism can be expected to want to hurt you as you have supposedly hurt them. And the best way to cope with a person with narcissism is to understand that they have an incurable condition, one that manifests in creating a dysfunctional interpersonal relationship with everyone that they have ever been in a relationship with. It is dysfunctional, it is difficult, if not impossible, to have a healthy relationship with a narcissist. My name is Sara Ann Brown, and this is Narcissistic Abuse 101.